Hi, everybody. I'm back to answer some questions today. For those of you who don't maybe know, my name is Ruth Tebeau, and I am an elementary teacher in Michigan in the US. And just shared some last week about how, some things I have done in my classroom and in my schools, just to kind of promote some of that positive pro-social behavior, looking at those moral development stages and things like that. So I wanted to address some of your questions today. I know they were, Melinda sent me those questions. I really appreciate them. I appreciate that you did have feedback and things kind of to take it further. So I really appreciate that. The first question was, how do you get to know your pupils in an online environment? And to be honest with you, I feel like in some ways I'm able to get to know them a little bit better than I could in brick and mortar. I feel like being in this setting, like the kids can see me here at my house. They see my kids, right now they're sleeping because it's late, but they'll see my kids running around the house and playing. My kids will hop up here. In fact, I have a seat here so they can sit here with me too, because they often want to come and be a part of class. So they'll kind of see what's going on and they'll see my kids. So they see a glimpse into my life. And conversely, I'm able to see a glimpse into their life as I can see into their house, right? So normally I would see kids in a brick and mortar, they would come to me and they would see me in my classroom environment, but I'm able to see them in their environment. I can see their family. I had a student this morning, there was just one of them in my, and again, remember I have small groups, so there's only about 5 kids or less in the group. At this point, right at the beginning of the class, there's only one student there. And his little sister was there, and his little sister was trying to say the letters with him, and so we were able to talk about that, and he kept apologizing for her, and I said, no, like, you see my kids too, and I was able to get her name and was able to address her too, and talk to her. So I feel like it can become more of a family type environment, literally with their families. When I taught the younger grades, in like kindergarten, first grade, a lot of those kids have their parent like right there next to them. And so the really nice part about that is, as I'm teaching the student and helping them become better readers, then I can also kind of teach the parent, because the parent's spending a lot of time teaching them too, and help the parent learn best practices and how to help them as well. And parents ask questions. So I feel like in one way, we really get to know each other better because it's more of a family environment. But we get to know each other kind of in a different way, if that makes sense. Like, it's, again, in brick and mortar, we're kind of seeing that school persona. And this way we're able to see more parts of them. At the same time, there's other things I don't see that I would see brick and mortar. I don't see as much of their interaction. I do see their interaction with other kids, like as they're talking in the chat or things like that. But it's not the same as, watching kids run around and play on the playground and things like that. So I feel like in some ways I do miss that. But I feel like there's a lot of ways that we can get to know each other really well in this environment. Again, working with small groups, I'm able to know the kids better, I think. Classroom teachers have more like 45 to 50 kids in their class. And so when they have a whole group lesson, it's not quite as intimate. But teachers in those brick and mortar, or I'm sorry, in those whole classroom classes really do a good job though of doing things to get to know each other. We also have the nice part of that, I can pick up the phone and call the learning coaches. That's what we call the person who's there to help the student. Often it's their parent though, not always. I can call them right away or email and usually get feedback really quickly. If it was in a school building where we were all together, that might be a little different. I'm probably not going to stop the lesson and make a phone call, but I could send a quick email, right? Like today, or yesterday, I think it was, I sent a bunch of emails when kids were just kind of messing around in class, not paying attention. And I had learning coach email me back right away. In fact, one of them actually then came, and because the kid was in class, he was there, but he was doing something else. He was not participating in my class. Like, he was even looking at the screen. So he was doing something else on his computer, but not what he was doing with me. And he had his camera on so I could see it. And so I emailed, and you could see his learning coach come into his room and like start talking to him. And then he suddenly started participating. So that is the nice thing too, is being able to have that kind of one-on-one flexibility. I also try and really make that personal contact with my students early on, especially for the younger ones. This can be really abstract for them. It's kind of like Sesame Street's talking to them on the computer. They don't really realize it's another person that they're interacting with always when they're younger. My students are 9, they understand, but kindergarten, first grade, that's a little abstract for them. So it's really good to make that connection with them so they see you're a real person who they're talking to back and forth. Those younger kids get really shy at first. And so it's really, you have to draw them out. Another question was, how do you try to get close to students when they have difficulties? Again, that's one of the challenges of being in this model virtually, is that I'm kind of dependent on their participation. You know, in brick and mortar, I did really well with classroom management. So being able to manage that whole class of students, you know, nip behaviors in the bud, no expectations, know what they're supposed to do. In brick and mortar, that was really a strong suit of mine. And it still is in this setting. The problem is if the student decides to turn off the camera and their mic and not participate, and they might be there, but they're not there, it really makes it hard to interact with them. And so that's one of those things that's a challenge in this model, is how can I pull kids in when they're that, because I can only do so much if they're not participating. But again, that's where I can reach out to those learning coaches. I can reach out to the people that are there supporting them. And usually, especially at my grade level, so mine are 9, you know, in 4th grade, they're kind of more independent on their computers a lot of time, which means they're not always the most responsible. And so it's good for parents to see kind of what they're doing, and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm going to talk to him today. It won't be a problem again, usually. And really, again, I feel like it's those personal connections. I also, something I've started a few weeks ago, which has been really good. I do 4 days out of the week. Right at the end of the day, I have a read aloud. So read alouds are so important. They help so many different parts of classroom community, help us become that family that I talked about before. And they also model good reading for the kids, which obviously is important, and model listening behaviors, right? That's a really important pro-social skill, listening and responding then as we're having a conversation. So not just say this person says something and this person and then this person, and they're all individual. How do I say something and then this person piggybacks off that, and then this person piggybacks, you know, and we have that conversation around. And so I've started this read aloud, and we just finished our first book, and it's totally optional. Kids don't have to come. And I make the recordings available so they can always go back and listen to them. So if they miss a day, you know, then they're not missing a chunk of the book. And it's nice to be able to have, again, that can be that kind of connection where we can talk, we can see what's going on, we can check in with each other, you know, say hi. We do that a lot at the beginning of class. Just say hi, how's your week going? What's going on? I had kids talking all about their dance classes today. So we can for sure make those connections virtually. You just have to put the effort in, just like you do in brick and mortar. I feel like that's true kind of in anything you do. It's the effort that you put in, and people will see that, and people will kind of react to that. The biggest challenge virtually, I feel like, is that engagement. So really having students who are there and then present and learning. Sometimes I find that my lowest students, the ones that need my support the most, remember, I'm a reading interventionist, so I'm working with the kids that are the lowest readers, trying to help them gain the skills they need to fill in those gaps in their reading. And often I find that those lowest readers sometimes have the least amount of support. And so how do I get them engaged, get them to want to come and really engage in class? And sometimes that's the biggest challenge, is I don't have control over that. You know, in brick and mortar, as long as they came in the building, man, I could take them, I could whip them in shape. I could help them get where they needed to be because I could get them in that place that I need them to be. It's so hard though if they're like gone and MIA and not participating. That's really the most frustrating part, is you know, there's the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, which is true, but I have to get the horse to water first, right? So I got to get the kids to come to class first, and then I can help guide them along that way. The last question was, what inspired you to become a teacher? And, you know, I remember being in well, I guess let me back up. I grew up the youngest of 6 kids. I have a brother, a sister, 2 stepsisters, and a stepbrother. I was the youngest, and so my first niece was born when I was 10. And since then, there have been lots that have come along the way. And so I feel like I grew up kind of helping take care of kids. I grew up babysitting, with all these nieces and nephews. And it just came very naturally, taking care of kids and learning and teaching. And um, I can remember spending some time, I want to say it was my junior or senior year, so my 11th or 12th grade year in high school, really praying and talking to God and saying, what do I do? What's next for me? Um, I had for a while when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor. And it's still something that's very interesting to me, but it seemed like a lot of school at the time. So I didn't think I wanted to do that. Um, and so I just wasn't sure what was next. And I really got this peace from the Holy Spirit, just this peace that said, teaching is kind of that place for you to go. Um, and then as I thought about teaching, and I had some really good teachers as I grew up, and I'm sure if you sit and reflect on kind of your learning experience, there's probably one or two or three people somewhere along the way um, that either inspired you to want to keep learning and maybe on a certain path or a certain subject or just in general learning, or maybe even the opposite. They were kind of not the greatest influence as a teacher, but it pushed you onward, right? Because you realized I want to be better than that. So I feel like I kind of thought about those teachers in my younger days, especially, that had really inspired me. And it was that relationship and that connection, and that's what I wanted to. So that's kind of how my journey started, I guess. When I first went to undergrad and was in college, I worked at the daycare at my church and worked with school age kids, like before and after school, and then also in preschool and just all through from birth on up through preschool. And I really just enjoyed being with the kids, and I was good at it. And so that really kind of confirmed to me as I started the education journey, um, that I wanted to be a teacher. I would say it's definitely not for everybody. And I'm not sure what the culture and climate is for education in other countries. But in America, we're losing a lot of teachers. We're losing a lot of teachers right now for a lot of reasons. And it's definitely not something for the faint of heart, and definitely not something that you just say, well, if you can't do, you teach. So there's always that phrase, those who can't do teach. And I really think that's not true. Um, because to be able to teach takes a specific type of mindset. Um, and there's obviously the patience and things, but a lot of that can be learned. But you really have to have that drive. And so it's definitely not for everybody. I've enjoyed the past 18 years, and I may stay in education. I may stay as a teacher. I may do some other things because I'm really starting to discover too that I can affect kids and I can affect change for kids in lots of different ways, and it may not be in the classroom. And that's kind of a new idea for me. Um, in this place where I am in my life, that maybe there are other things outside of the classroom I could do that would be just as beneficial, if not more, for kids. So um, also, some of you may be thinking about a career in education. Don't just get pigeonholed either into, well, teaching is this. Teaching is being in a classroom. I mean, even my position now, I'm not a classroom teacher. I was for a really long time. And I like it. It's different. I'm able to really focus on one subject. So there's different avenues in education too. Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Melinda has my contact information. It was on that PowerPoint in the video last week. So I'm so glad I was able to speak with you all. Feel free if you have any questions, if you want to reach out, I'm always available. Thank you.